Welcome to this edition of Cup Chat with Birding with Texas A&M Agri-Life Extension Service. Today, we welcome special guest Orin Robinson, an information scientist for eBird data. Join us as we talk about how eBird works, all the awesome maps that Orin makes, as well as talk about some of the rarities that we are seeing here in Texas.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Cup Chat with Birding with Texas A&M Agri-Life Extension Service. Maureen disappeared this morning, so Maureen won't be joining us, even though her picture's there in her memory. But joining us today, we have special guest Orin Robinson, who works for Cornell and is an eBird data scientist. And then also joining us today, y'all know, member of the team, Brian Koch. He's joining us from Albuquerque. He'd like everyone to know that it's very cold there, but he doesn't have any coffee, I'm sure, because he doesn't drink coffee.
Yep.
So today we are going to let Orin talk a little bit about what eBird is and talk a little bit about rare birds and the data that he's seeing coming through. But I want to remind everyone that as we are live on Facebook, we do now have the ability to check the questions coming in. So if you have any questions as we go, please make sure to comment and we will catch those and we will pass those on to either Brian or Orin for you. So Orin, tell us a little bit about what you do and your passion for birding.
Yeah, so I am, like you said, I'm at Cornell. I mainly, the main focus of what I do is to take the data that is put into eBird and analyze that, combine it with other kinds of data to create these models. Like I will show you some examples of those today, and ultimately to use the lessons we learn there for conservation applications.
Awesome. So how long have you been with eBird, and give me a little bit of and what is eBird? How long have you been there, and how does it work, and why should birders consider trying out eBird?
So I've been at Cornell for a little over 4 years, and I have worked with the eBird data since the first day I walked in. So that's I guess that answers that. How long have I been using the eBird data? I can, if I may share my screen, I can give you an overview of eBird.
Absolutely.
What it is, the kinds of how to use it really. Let's see, and we can go from there. Let's see. All right, are you guys seeing the full screen?
Yes, yeah, we are.
Okay, you're not seeing a presenter view or anything weird like that?
No, sir.
All right. So yeah, this I like to show this figure. This is not a map of the world. This is a map of every data point put into eBird on a white background. So you can see how we have data from everywhere.
That is super cool.
Let's see. So eBird, what it does, it really tries to harness the interests of birders to identify and record all the birds that they find. It makes it really, really easy to work with your own data. So there's a mobile app that you can use while you're out in the field. There, you can input your sightings online, and I can walk you through that process real quick here.
Well, and I want to pause you really quick because I'm going to share just one of my favorite things a little bit about eBird, and Brian can jump in when he wants, if he has any thoughts. But one thing that I've super enjoyed about using eBird is that it's connected to y'all's Merlin bird app. And so when you are struggling with identification, and we talked about in past Cup Chats, making that case for ID, that this that Merlin eBird app allows you to go through step by step, make that case for ID, and then select the bird it is, and it will automatically upload that to your eBird data. And I think that that's such a really cool feature as you look at eBird, and combining that with identification, and another great app to make sure you have on your phone along with eBird.
Yeah, Merlin's fantastic, especially if you go somewhere where you're not very familiar with the birds. That's happened to me a couple of times over the last few years, where I'm pretty good with my birds here in the Northeast, but I go somewhere out west, California or Europe or somewhere like that. I have no idea on a lot of them. So the Merlin app is awesome for that, for sure. So eBird will ask you a few questions, and the interface we're looking at here is if you were to go online and enter your sightings online. But I'll show you the mobile app here in just a second. So the first thing it's going to ask you is, where are you? You can choose, previous location, enter a new one. You can choose a spot on a map. There are hotspots where you can see where you are on the map, and you may not have to, necessarily enter a place. Right? These are all the hot spots right around the lab here in Ithaca. So these date and effort, these effort fields are very important to people like me. They tell us the effort that you have put into birding. And if anyone has done any kind of modeling count or occupancy data or fisheries data or anything like that, that effort absolutely has to be accounted for. That helps us know how to account for the variation in effort among all the different people who are using eBird when we start using this data to model species distributions and things like that.
So I've got a question for you, Orin, about date and effort. Something that I run into pretty often with new birders, beginner and intermediate birders even, which is mostly who we are targeting with Birding with Extension. And they go to use eBird and they see they have to enter all this information about their effort. And a lot of times I'll meet folks who just don't see really the value in that for themselves, or they just don't remember all that information. So is there a way that they could use eBird without putting in all this detail just for their own personal records?
Yes. I would say the historical protocol or observation type, or you could use incidental, which is not entirely what you're talking about, but under the historical protocol, I don't think you absolutely have to put in any of this effort.
Okay.
If you can collect this effort, it is of great value to the people who are using the data for scientific purposes.
Right. All right. Thanks.
So, and I will also say that that's the side I'm coming from. I come at eBird from the side of someone who's analyzing the data rather than someone who's using it personally. And I do use it personally, but I can't turn off that. Here's how I'm supposed to do it to get the best data for us to use. Effort's incredibly important.
Right.
So if you can put that in there, it helps a lot, but you don't absolutely have to. And I would use, the historical or incidental observation type to do that. I will also say that the app, if you use the app on your phone while you're birding, it takes care of all of that for you. So you don't have to put that in yourself. You don't have to remember Um, and it's hard to estimate how far you've walked, right? Because you almost never walk in a straight line. You're meandering around a trail or whatnot, and unless you know exactly how long that trail is or whatever, it's hard to know exactly how far you went. So a lot of this stuff is, you know, it's tough to pin down and remember. So after the effort, we get into the fun stuff, right? Here's what you put in, what you saw, maybe what you heard. If you've got any audio or pictures you took, you can upload those there. And then another very important question: are you submitting a complete checklist of the birds you were able to identify? Answer. So this is one where absolutely answer honestly, first of all, but an answer of yes lets us assume that any birds you did not identify or that are not on your checklist were not present while you were birding. So again, from the analysis side, that's a very important thing to know, because the way the models work is, you know, knowing where they're not is almost just as important as knowing where they are. So this is another important question that eBird will ask you before you submit. Now, if you are submitting under like the historical or incidental checklist, I don't think it'll ask you this. All right. So I know I've been talking about it, but here is the eBird app. I think at last time I looked anyway, it was available in 27 languages.
Wow,
it may be more than that.
that's amazing.
They are they're constantly updating and upgrading the app, so it may be even more than that. But it's you know, more of the same, right? It will ask you, you know, where you are, what you saw, and then the effort. When you are ready to submit, that's when you will put in the effort. eBird now will take tracks, and if you start your checklist, when you start birding, it also keeps track of how long you were birding. So how far you went and how long you birded are taken care of for you by the app. And then you can, you know, you get to review it before you go, oh, I forgot to add that chickadee that flew over or whatever. Or you can put in any comments, you know, things like that. But it's basically, it's the exact same information. I personally like the app better. Maybe that's just me. I think it's cleaner. I think it's easier. But
Brian is nodding his head yes.
Yes.
Everybody can't see it, but Brian's nodding his head yes. And I just love that the systems are connected. And I think that that's something really, you know, something to really point out. In working for a government agency and an extension service, there's not always a whole lot of money floating around to do awesome projects like Cornell has. And so I think in the birding world, we are so fortunate to have such great tools like eBird and the Merlin app coming out of Cornell, and that sometimes maybe we forget how wonderful those things are and how grateful we should be of those tools. And I haven't done any research on how all these things are funded, but some of it's got to be funded because us as birders are providing them data that they can use for their studies. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm completely just speaking out of my thought process here, Orin. And so how pivotal it is that we work with the system to provide them the information that they need, as well as to benefit us in our bird list.
Yeah, I will also say that this data is open access. So anyone who wants to use this data in their own projects has access to it. We also create tools that show you how to download the data, how to manipulate it, how to use, how to create the exact models that we use here. So, you know, it's, yes, you as a birder, you are giving us very valuable data, but we also want to return that and allow anyone who wants to use it for scientific purposes to use it.
Right.
So you're not just providing data to us, you're providing data to anyone who's
That's a wonderful point. Absolutely wonderful point. Okay, so we are kind of moving through our time. So I'm going to kind of make you jump to our next question.
All right.
Because I think this is what I'm most interested to get to today. And I don't know about Brian, but I've been chomping at the bit all week and had Maureen's tried to like pump me down a little bit. But let's talk a lot about, which by the way, since she's not here, we're doing a big giveaway. So make sure you stay tuned till the end. Just because Maureen decided to leave us this morning, I'm giving away a lot. So anyways, part of your job is to look at and make the awesome maps that we see coming out of eBird. Can you show us one of those maps? Kind of talk about why that's important for bird conservation. And then let's talk about rare birds. So Brian is an eBird reviewer, and while you're pulling up your map, Orin, I'll let Brian kind of share what that means to be an eBird reviewer for those who don't know that eBird has reviewers. But I think that this year especially, we are seeing lots of rarities, especially here in Texas, a little bit out of place from where they normally are. And Orin, maybe you can talk about, is that's a trend that you are seeing across the US through eBird, or what? So Brian, really quick, what are you as an eBird reviewer? Do we really trust you? I know we all love you here at Extension, but.
So in a nutshell, eBird reviewers are basically local experts on the status and distribution of birds wherever you are. So what we do is we create and manage filters for over certain politically bounded areas, so either a county or a state or something like that, generally. And we say, okay, these birds should be here this time of year, and this is how many of them we can expect in a given day of birding. And so when you see something that is either rare given the season, or you see a lot of something that's unusual to see in such numbers, what will happen is it will get filtered out by the filters that we create. And then the reviewers will look at your observation and either analyze what you've entered in the comments, or we will ask you for more comments or photos just to verify your observation, to make sure that all of the data going into eBird has been verified. So all of the reviewers are working on a volunteer basis, so we're not getting paid to do this. It's just something that we enjoy doing, and we want to help Cornell and eBird get the best data possible. So I know a lot of birders kind of view their reviewers as kind of this in kind of a negative light, as, oh, who are they, why are they questioning my sightings, it's just my sighting. But really we're just trying to get the best data possible for eBird. And even if your sighting, if you didn't get a photo, or if you don't provide a description that passes review, that sighting is still stays in your own personal records. So for that reason, don't be afraid to submit something, even if you don't think it's going to get past review. So
and that's a good point. And I'm going to bring up a little short story, and I promise I do talk a lot. This one may be over 30 minutes, but super great point about having eBird reviewers is just the other day, we got an email that said, I saw an Arizona jay in Valverde County. And, that's not what you saw. But because they were a new birder, they didn't know that a woodhouse scrub jay looks very much like the Arizona jay, and the woodhouse scrub jay would be in this area. And they didn't, and it not their fault, but they turned to their guidebook. They looked at the Arizona jay and said, oh, that's what it is. They didn't even know to go look at a woodhouse scrub jay. And so that's a great point of why, if you're putting that in eBird, someone can go use that as an educational tool to say, oh, that's probably not what you saw, but here's the species that you probably saw, and use that as a learning point. So Orin, you threw something else up on the screen, talking about the 5,000 filters.
Yeah, so I'll add to your story on the Arizona jay there. It's not just beginning birders. I've done that. Mm-hmm. I did that in Spain a couple of years ago. There are wood creeper species that look very similar over there. And I basically made a guess. And the reviewer contacted me and said, this would be a big deal if you saw that bird there. And I said, it probably wasn't it. Probably the other one that you are telling me is more common. So it's not just, beginners. It happens to everybody. What Brian was talking about was actually the next slide I was going to in my presentation here. So what happens after you put all this information in? And there are over 5,000 filters, about where things are, what they are. Here's one, like I just put in a dummy count of 15,000 green-winged teal here in Ithaca. Well, we get green-winged teal, but we don't get that many. They're not rare here, but we don't get them in huge numbers like they do other places. So before it even goes to a reviewer, this is going to pop up on the eBird app when you enter a super high count. So this is one of the most common is a high count for an area or a season. This happened with this was a real one. This was a snowy owl about 45 minutes north of me on Christmas Eve. I loaded up my 8-month-old and 4-year-old and wife, and we went on a trek looking for a snowy owl on Christmas Eve last year. And we found it. And this is another really common one that'll pop up, is that this bird is not on the local checklist, right? It's not on the list of birds expected for that location or that time. And it will force you to write in there, here's where I saw it, here's how I know that's what this was, any of those comments, and then it goes to a reviewer. So there's a lot of these filters. There's, and then all the checklists get reviewed through those filters, and around 20% of the checklists are reviewed by a human. And there are thousands of reviewers worldwide. And it's amazing how quickly these guys work, especially given to volunteers. So yeah, where you were going is actually exactly where I was going next. So that was. So what are you guys seeing now? Are you seing the eBird webpage?
The website, yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to show. So this is eBird.org. This is when you go to eBird. This is what you land on. But there are a lot of things here. News. What I want to point you to is the science page. Right. And then I'm part of the group that develops what's called the status and trends models. And this is where we take
that's a pretty map.
And we can look at, so let's look like black-throated blue warbler. I just like that critter. Let's go there. So
I love warblers. Orin, you didn't even know it. Warblers are my favorite. Brian's going to take me to the coast one day so I can see them all.
That's the plan.
So we can take the eBird data that is submitted, and we attach a lot of environmental covariates taken from NASA satellites, shoreline data, intertidal data, water data, all kinds of stuff. Combine that with the eBird checklists, and we can produce a distribution map for every week of the year. So here we can watch the black-throated blue warbler in the spring migrate to its breeding ground be relatively stationary during the breeding period, and then come back in the fall. And this is the kind of things we can do with that eBird data. We have this currently for 610 species. The new version of this is actually being run right now and should be available to see mid-December-ish. That is the goal. So we should have at least 610 species again, hopefully more. It's not just these animation maps. So we can look at just static abundance maps. So this is the abundance during the winter, the abundance during the pre-breeding migration period, breeding season, the fall migration period. We also have range maps. All right, so this is just the basic, field guide style range map. We even get those weird ones that show up out there out west.
Wow.
Every one of these is reviewed by species experts that have the final thumbs up, thumbs down on this. They have to pass through many, many statistical filters before they even get through to the species experts. We have, validated these with BBS data. I'm currently working with U.S. Fish and Wildlife on a project with bald eagles, using this data to help them streamline the permitting process for incidental take for like wind farm development and things like that. And we use that to validate with their own aerial surveys and things like that. So this, the handful of validations we've done with all of this data has been, very, very good. But yeah, these are the kinds of things that we do with this eBird data. Wow. We can create these maps. If we have time, there's, like I said, 610 species. If there's one of interest to you guys, we could look at.
Brian, you have one?
All of this data is available for free as well. So there's an R package called eBird ST that walks you through how to download all the data from the Amazon Web Service where this is housed. So you can, if you had your own project, you can download all the data that we've used to create those maps, and some other stuff. We can't show everything here in these visualizations, but there's a lot of extras that you get with that, and then you can cut it to your project site or whatever your interests are. So again, we make this data freely available.
That's super cool. All right, Brian, you have a species that we should check out on the map?
Is tropical Perula in there?
Ooh.
Don't know.
See where you're going here.
Cool. This is one of our very special birds that we see at some of our programs. Very cool. Yeah, if you see that in the spring migration, they come up into that little pocket of West Texas. That's Valverde County. So looking forward to seeing them this spring during our Birding the Border events, as well as in the summer during our Rio Diablo birding camp.
Yeah, so actually, and Brian's being very modest because we are actually going to be featuring the tropical Perula this year at our Birding the Border program. And so it's going to be our feature bird out at Devils River State Natural Area. Participants have the opportunity to go out, spend the day at Devils River State Natural Area, and there will be an educational presentation out there about that tropical Perula. So let's talk a little, Orin, and really we've got to kind of shove the last little part into as quick as possible. But let's talk about the rare birds that we're seeing this year, because as far as I'm as knowledgeable about is maybe we're seeing a little more than usual based upon something. Is that is that true on the data side? Is that what we're seeing?
I honestly could not tell you. I think your local reviewer would be a much better person to ask than me on that. So I don't. You can sign up for the rare bird alerts on eBird, and I follow the ones in New York, and then nationwide the super rare ones. In case somebody gets the itch, wants to travel. To see a really weird one. But I honestly, I haven't noticed the list being any longer here in New York. But again, that's just that there's no analysis or anything I've done to see that there are more rare birds this year than previous years. So yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying I really don't know.
Well, Brian, you are our local eBird reviewer for for Kinney County. When we were out for Learn to Bird program here a couple of weeks ago, we kind of thought we saw a lot of birds that were on the westernmost, kind of pushing their range a little bit. Brian, is that kind of something that y'all have seen traditionally this year, a little bit more than usual?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of Texas is experiencing an incursion of Western species, which is possibly due to the extensive wildfires that the West has been experiencing this year. So Texas is seeing things like pinion jays, large numbers of Williamson sapsuckers, lots of Cassin's finches. At Birding the Border in Valverde County, we had, I think, the 4th or 5th record of red-naped sapsucker for the county, which was unusual. We had probably 3 different black-throated gray warblers, which are rare enough just to see one. So a lot of Western species are pushing into Texas this year. And then on a grander scale, we're seeing a lot of winter finches pushing down, especially in the east. I know for sure evening grosbeaks are coming in record numbers this year. So it's just an interesting year to be out birding no matter where you are.
Yeah, it seems like everybody around here except me is getting evening grosbeaks. I had yet to get one. I did get pine siskins the other day, finally.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I know folks around here seeing a lot more evening grosbeaks and crossbills and things like that than normal.
For sure.
Well, that's wonderful. So let me ask you then this question. We'll go for a fun question, Orin. If you were to come to Texas, what bird would you want to see the most?
Oh man. So I drove across Texas. So I'm from Mobile, Alabama, and several years ago we did a long road trip. We drove from Mobile out to San Diego and back, and I missed scissortail flycatcher in Texas, both directions, and then saw one on Dolphin Island when I got back to Alabama. So that's my Texas birding. Some of the Western warblers, I have not birded in the West very much. So that would be a goal for me in Texas. Yeah.
Well, we definitely appreciate you coming. And as promised, since the boss is away, we'll do a big giveaway. Look at me, I'm rhyming. So everyone who watches Birding with Extension Cup Chat today and comments below, I will be sending a Birding with Extension sticker. So I know that's not like a big monetary, but Maureen would be appalled if she knew I was giving everyone away a sticker away today. So comment below with what county you are joining us from if you're in the state of Texas, or if you are joining us from out of state, let us know what state you're joining us from, and we will be sending you a sticker. And Orin, send me your address and I'll make sure you get one too.
Definitely. Excellent. Thank you.
Wonderful. So thank y'all all for joining us today. since Maureen isn't here to end Cup Chat, we're not sure how this part's going to work, but thank you all for joining us, and we will be back next week for Cup Chat. Let me pull up the calendar and see what we're talking about. I think, next week we are talking about Christmas bird count. So make sure to join us back. Another great citizen science tool that we will be talking about and keeping up with all these records of all the wonderful birds we're seeing. So we'll see y'all later. If you have any questions, let us know. Bye.
Bye.